Hi, boys and girls, and everything in between. Please take a moment to share today's episode with someone who values free speech and enjoys brutally honest comedy in a filthy mouth. Okay? All right. Welcome, folks. Great to be with you today. Got a great show. We got a true patriot, just like my producer Dallas here, a guy who jumps out of planes. And you know him from the Drinking Brothers podcast. He's a regular on Tucker Carlson's show. A true patriot, Dan Hollaway, is with us. He's a real straight shooter and the type of guy we like, you know, fuck the feelings, get to the truth. Here's a clip of him doing some of his work on the podcast.
People, Antifa, they're weak. They're a product of weak culture, right? Like, you have no shot in the real world. If all this stuff disappears, if the police go away and this capitalist patriarchy infrastructure that you fucking benefit from goes away, you skinny little white bitch, you're going to lose everything.
Everything.
Because I'm going to come take it from you. If there's no cops anymore, all your shit becomes my shit. You understand that, right? And you get fucking left on the road, fucking with your heads fucking beaten in.
Sounds like me talking to my first wife during the divorce. Dan, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for doing this. Nice to meet you. I've seen you on Tucker a few times. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's great to be here. Big fan of your work. I enjoy, you know, I was thinking about you on the way into work this morning, just about how 10 years ago you would have just been a normal comic, and now you're an alt-right comic, right? It's
right.
Like, what the fuck is going on here?
That is so right. As a matter of fact, somebody dug up a list. My manager found it online. Harvard put out, about a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, put out a list of comedians who are considered alt-right. And I finally get it.
Is it every comedian now? Because if if you're edgy at all anymore, you're all right.
Anybody who touches on the truth is alt-right. I think there's two type of people in this world. You got people who are politically correct and honest people. That's how I look at it.
Or you could say
right?
honest people and pussies, to be honest, because that's really what it is.
Well, that's exactly. When I heard your riff on Antifa, I've been saying that on my show, going, do you see these fucking pukes? None of them are athletes or whatever the fuck. They're nerds with a bad fucking temper. And like you said, they don't even know how to hold a gun they're fucked. We get guys like you, if it ever goes to the streets, and my producer Dallas, by the way, who jumped out of planes in the Army. And they don't have a prayer, man. You're so right. You'll take the shit for, what are they going to do if there's no cops around?
No, it's kind of like somebody that's standing out in the middle of the Arctic on an iceberg with a flamethrower and just, melting the ice around them. Like, yeah, how do you think that's going to work out, asshole?
That's exactly right. And you see the few times they were challenged, there's been a few clips in the last couple of years, when all the rioting was going on, where they got challenged and they literally tucked their tail and fucking ran. And you had neighborhood guys beating the shit out of them in a ditch. Remember that clip? We were laughing our ass.
Yeah. It's really funny. It's like, and then from the media's perspective, whenever whatever group, whether it's neighborhood guys or Proud Boys or somebody goes out there and actually fights back against these assholes,
right.
It's like, oh, they're domestic terrorists now. Not the people that did $2 billion worth of damage to our cities, right? The guys who showed up to stop it are the terrorists.
I can't wrap my head around that for the life of me. I will get into that. I'm so jaded and so cynical. I feel like the die has been already cast for this country going global. I feel like there's, guys like us, some Republicans, Trump and his followers or whatever, DeSantis, and it's us against the fucking world. Europe seems like they've already gone full Marxist, whatever. I mean, how do we stop this, Dan? I mean, I don't think just winning elections is going to do it. It's going to. I hate to sound hyperbolic, but eventually it's going to come down to violence.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Right?
that's always
A last option.
that's always at the end of the line, unfortunately. But
Right.
but you mentioned Europe regarding how to stop it. Winston Churchill used to say that appeasement is feeding the crocodile, hoping he eats you last. You know what I mean? Like all the capitulation to these assholes and these fringe groups time after time. And then the way, globalist actors tend to come into an issue and moralize everything and pretend like we will need to be on the right side of history, whatever the fuck that means. You have people fighting against their own best interests and they feel like they're high roading everybody. It's the most nonsense I've ever seen in my life, frankly.
The left doesn't seem to understand people. They might be like maybe book smart or whatever, but they don't understand how flawed the human species really is. They really think, well, again, it's all about power. I don't know how they can keep looking at it. They have no examples where what they want ever worked in the history of the world, and you know that.
Well, think
right?
about their grasp on logic, just at the very base level, how the mechanical universe operates, and it permeates everything that happens, whether it's physics or sociology or economics or whatever it is. You have to have an intrinsic tie from effort and reward, right? Like you have to put in effort and then you get reward because of it. That has to be the case. Otherwise, everything kind of falls apart, and that's where we are now. So the most obvious version of it is staying physically fit, right? So you work
Right.
out, you stay in shape, and you're more healthy than other people. You're more ready to do stuff than other people.
Right.
But because that example intrudes on their worldview that life's not fair, so it has to be this other way. Now they're saying that fucking morbidly obese people are beautiful. Like this is you're fat shaming. No, I'm trying to save your life, you fat fuck.
That crystallizes how they think. You're absolutely right, and they all come from that same ilk. They fucking I'm a stand-up. It was sort of like showbiz. I remember sitting at that table at the Comedy Cellar or in Boston where I first started, and this industry's filled with a lot of fucking nerdy kids who got beat the fuck up. And they hated me and this other comic, Kevin Flynn. He was like an All-American soccer player. They fucking hated us the minute we sat at the table with all their low self-esteem horse shit and oh, this is our turf.
Well, what do you think about a guy like you came up around Mario Cantone too. Now, if he was doing his act from 2005 today, people would be like, "Oh, you're anti-trans, you're a homophobe." Like,
Right.
well, he's fucking gay.
Right.
I mean, he's one of the funniest comedians ever, right? One of the best
Absolutely.
stand-ups ever. And if you mapped his act onto today, nothing's changed in the world.
That's
Everything is
right.
still exactly the goddamn same.
That's right.
But for some reason, that act now would be considered maybe he's far right. It's hard to tell, right?
That's a great point. And you know who said that? The late great Manny Dwarman. He owned the Comedy Cellar in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
The guy, he taught politics in Israel. He was a professor, smart, fucking. Me and him, we had the same political beliefs. And he said to me, Nick, he goes, in the 70s, they said I was liberal. You know, his politics haven't changed one iota. He goes, today, they call me a righty. He goes, I haven't changed one political belief. You know, like you said, it's the shit around us that's gone cuckoo. And he would back me, Dan, every time I get in trouble down there, I got into he would back me 1,000%. I'd go too far at the Comedy Cellar some nights because I was there every night for 15 years. I felt like I was in my living room. I felt like the audience was intruding on which is wrong. They pay to get in. You get too cocky, you get a few drinks in you start fucking. But he would defend me every fucking time. And what finally is he died. His son took over and he goes, Nick, me and my father loved you, but you're making it even tough on us now. We're getting so much hate mail.
I think people have a misunderstanding about comedy, though, like and what the
Of course.
Not even just what the purpose is, but what it is at its core. It's like if I'm a baseball player and I miss, then I strike out or I pop up or I throw a ball or whatever it is.
Right.
If I'm a comedian and I miss, then maybe the joke is too offensive or maybe it's dull or whatever the fuck. But that's a possibility that I went too far.
Right.
And that's a mistake on my part. But people make mistakes when they're working. And one mistake in a job probably in most jobs doesn't end in any kind of abuse or certainly not like being deplatformed and shit like that.
Right.
It's nonsense.
That's a great point. And it's what's ironic, it's a great way for us to relieve this tension, whether it's racial or whatever the fuck, It's the best way. I mean, the show Tough Crowd was the best example of that. We would, me and Patrice would butt heads racially, but
Yeah, I remember Colin like stepping up onto the table, getting in between you guys when you were in an argument. He's like, "All right, guys, calm down." But you guys weren't actually going to fight. It's stupid. And you know what the funny thing about that is?
I'd kill the fat fuck.
The only funny thing left on Saturday Night Live is when the two news host guys or whatever are reading each other's racist jokes. That's the only funny thing that even happens on the show anymore.
Right, and it's almost like they're doing it in kind of a fake environment, as opposed to if Patrice said something on Tough Crowd I didn't like, or I said something, he'd jump right down my throat. Colin Quinn was a genius to see that dynamic going on at the Comedy Cellar table and putting it on. How he got it on TV, to this day, we don't fucking know. But you're exactly right, Dan. And it's a great way to relieve pressure. You know, when you suppress language, it gets more dangerous. It's just like a valve. It keeps the pressure builds up. If you let it out, whether it's through a joke or a fucking song, honest to God, I don't mean to sound cliche but it really is a good way to, I mean, Richard Pryor, fucking Carlin, all these guys, Sam Kinison, those are the guys that I liked. That
for sure.
When they came off stage, you knew what they were about, what they were made of, and all the suppression lately has just made us hate each other more. Fucking,
I think that's the point, though. It's to drive a wedge between people. It's like I was in the 82nd Airborne, right? In the infantry, we go hard after each other all the time. If there's any downtime, we start throwing rocks at each other, or punch each other, or call each other the worst names on the planet. So
it's what guys do.
That's what guys do, right? So
that's love, though. That's love.
Who are you more likely to talk shit to, a stranger or somebody that you know and care about, right? So it's your buddy. You're more likely to say the worst possible shit to your buddy. So this idea that we can sanitize our conversations between strangers means that we will remain strangers forever. We'll never have that intimacy between people, the camaraderie that you find, the brotherhood that you find in extreme situations like this. We're not going to get there unless we can peel back these layers of fucking sanitation and sensitivity. It's just that's how life works. You know what I mean?
That's a great point. And it's all done intentionally. They use I always ask, I go, why do they choose that? Why do they choose that hill to die on, the race or the gender? But it's like, what better way is there to divide people? Especially in a country that's made up of a zillion ethnicities and races. And what better way to keep us all divided and at each other's throats, right?
Sure, yeah. And for the most part, it's not people of the alleged affected races that are complaining about it. It's white women, right?
Yes.
They're the most offended people on earth. I've been to 1,000 comedy shows. You've performed probably 20,000 shows in your life. Yeah. Who gets offended at your shows? Honestly, who is it?
These big, fat, black lesbian twats. No, it would be. No, you're right. It's especially, Dan, especially at the Comedy Cellar, which is on the campus of NYU. So it's tables of. I made so many tables of girls leave crying, not because they were laughing. They gave me the finger. They hated my guts. They would literally be in tears, saying you're racist, you're blah. And you're absolutely right about that.
So these bad actors are trying to take advantage of the guilt that middle class white people feel for stuff that they weren't ever involved in. How ridiculous is that? You know what I mean?
Exactly right. I say,
like, here's the bottom line. If people are struggling right now, you should feel uncomfortable about that, and you should go help that person. Right. You know what I mean? Right. Immediately. You should do whatever you can to help people that are struggling. But this idea that we have to map hundreds of years of bullshit onto modern day, that is irrelevant. What's relevant is the suffering that's happening now, whether it's a fucking white dude in West Virginia or a black single mother in fucking LA. It doesn't matter to me. That person's struggling. They get taken care of because they're a fucking American. That's how it works, right?
Even the Jews? Just kidding.
Kanye 24, buddy. What's happening with Kanye? Jesus Christ. Do you think this is performance art? Is it Andy Kaufman, or is he legit crazy?
I've been asking myself that since this frickin' guy came on. I'm not a big hip hop guy, but I know enough people who love hip hop and say he's a genius in that way, whatever the fuck that means. I really think he knows how to draw attention to himself. And I had problems, Dan. I don't know what your take is. We're talking to Dan Hollaway, by the way, Drinking Brothers podcast, 82nd Airborne, a true patriot. And I with the shit that he was saying, I've been trying to figure him out forever. As far as when he showed up with, was it Nick Fuentes to Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Dan. And I love Trump. Wouldn't Trump know? Isn't there a list of guest list? You can't just show up with this, can you? Do you really think he didn't expect that? Help me out here.
Yeah, it seems like maybe he should. If not him, certainly somebody on his staff would have known. By the way, Nick Fuentes is a fucking retard.
Is he? I don't.
He went on his channel.
Yeah.
I think like 2 years ago. He went on some long diatribe about what's that guy's name, Dinesh D'Souza.
Yes.
And he goes, "What do you know about being an American? I don't remember anybody named D'Souza signing the Declaration of Independence or the Bill of Rights." It's like, dude, I don't remember anybody named Fuentes signing any of those documents either. What the fuck are you talking about?
The only clip I showed of him was him throwing a drink. Did you see that last week? He was in L.A. at a fucking In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I understand he was getting shit talked in public and whatever, but don't disrespect the In-N-Out, you know.
Is that from The Sopranos? Are you a Sopranos fan?
It may have been, yeah. That's don't respect the pizza parlor, disrespect the pizza parlor, yeah.
That was it.
It's right after Moltisanti got made. Yeah, that's a good episode.
He gets in it. Holy shit, he does. I got a guy here. This guy's my fucking soulmate, and he's a guy. What the fuck? Yeah, that was exactly the fucking line. Don't disrespect the fucking Bing or whatever, wherever they were. He goes, I can't be seen in here. He's in a pizza place in a suit. I can't believe you got that. Holy shit. Yeah, I thought that was a very weird, but again, and he probably is a scumbag and whatnot, but I will defend any left or right. You put your neck on the line, sort of my producer here, Dallas. I got to thank you guys for that. And especially when you're a comic and you do this for a living, nobody takes free speech more. I mean, I never took that for granted. Even as an open micer, when I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, all I knew is I had a job where I could say cunt and not get in trouble.
I've actually got a whole brand that's all politicians are cunts. That's the T-shirts, hats, mugs, everything. Just because it's true, you know.
Well, I know
that's more my speed. I don't trust any of them.
I know what my wife's getting for Christmas. Dallas, any questions? Dallas, what were you in the 501? What was it? Dallas?
Yeah, it's 501st.
Oh yeah, I was in the 325th.
Nice. Yeah, I was at Fort Rich and went to Afghanistan with them in 0304.
Wait, that's Geronimo, right?
Yep, Geronimo.
I thought it was Geronimo.
That was before we did the unit of action and went to USARPAC.
Oh yeah, this whole reconstruction of the military. I mean, honestly, now you can ask to go to a new duty assignment if the state you're stationed in doesn't respect the fact that you're mentally unstable and you want everybody to have to, you know, be part of your delusion.
Well, it's always
weird.
Military's always been the petri dish of social experimentation.
Oh yeah, big time. It's definitely not about winning wars because we haven't won one in a long goddamn time.
Jesus Christ! Let me ask you a question, Dan. If Mark Milley walked in there, what would you say to him right now?
I call him a cunt, which I do that all the time, anyways. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure his office records. They'll be watching this show because they record every episode of anything I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah, they actually print out transcripts of it. So
really? Hey, General Milley, you want to see some white fucking rage? And that's right, I am white. I'm half Italian, but I'm more Irish and English. So, anyways, what the fuck? I want to respect these guys, and I'm sure he put his. But how does a guy like that in that position move up? He didn't just start thinking like this, right?
Well, no, I mean, that's a political position, right? So he doesn't actually have any authority. The Joint Chief is an advisor to the military, right? So they don't really. He's an advisor to the military and to the president, so he doesn't technically have any authority, but. You know, the authority he has is the weight of the office, and what he says is his weapon. And I don't appreciate the things that he says, frankly. I understand, like I've heard some people tell me over the last couple of months that he wants to remain in a position of influence because he thinks things are all going downhill rapidly, and he wants to try to stop that or slow that down. I understand that to some degree. You got to be in the room to affect change. But what the fuck are you talking about taking time off to understand white rage? Who's that benefiting? You know what I mean?
Just the enemy.
Well, I mean, we all know that once you hit full bird, you become a uniformed politician anyway.
I mean, it literally takes an act of Congress to get a promotion after that. So you're sucking somebody's dick.
I was just going to say, is that an act of Congress sucking it? Hey guys, make plans to come and see me on the road starting next month. Here's where I'll be and when. January 13th and 14th, Comedy of Broadway, off-Broadway, I should say, Lexington, Kentucky. February 3rd and 4th, the Grove Comedy Club, Lowell, Arkansas. March 11th and 12th, the Comedy Club of KC, Kansas City, Missouri. April 21 and 22, the Funny Bone, St. Louis and St. Charles, Missouri. You can get tickets to all these shows at nickdip.com and click on the tour button. Thank you. What else did I want to? Oh, what's your take, Dan, on Ukraine and this Russia thing? And first of all, we got Whalen, that Marine, still sitting in the Huskow in Russia. What were your thoughts on that trade?
Well, not as bad as the Russell Wilson trade, probably, but what are you going to do? Well, here's what I think about that. So NBC News ran the first article about that issue and said that the Biden administration had the choice between Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan, and they chose Brittany Griner. Then they scrubbed that and changed it to something else, right? Because
Andrea
the mainstream
Mitchell,
media is a fucking joke.
Andrea Mitchell said, and she's no righty, she said that they gave Biden a choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So that's pretty weird. But not uncommon or out of character for a politician to be making political moves. You should expect shit like that. As far as Ukraine goes, I have a deep respect for the Ukrainian people because they're fucking warriors. Those people fight really, really hard. Zelensky is a World Economic Forum puppet, though, and that's very clear. He's a guy that shut down opposition politics. He shut down opposition news. He's now in the process of shutting down opposition religion. So I have no respect for that guy. He's a legit fascist that's just a total piece of shit. So should we be spending
that's why Biden
billions and billions of dollars on this on this conflict? Maybe let Europe take care of it. Because that's their. If somebody starts fucking around in Mexico, we can handle that. But maybe Europe can handle this shit.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder that too. That's the other big fucking joke. The border. I said to Dallas, I gave up on this. Even the wall thing. And again, I love Trump and stuff. But even that, I would look at my wife, whoever's in the room, Dallas. I'd go, really, fucking. We have the strongest military in the history of the planet, but we're talking about building a wall. I used to go on stage, I'd say that. I think a wall's a bad idea. My whole audience would be like, why would Nick think a wall's bad? I go, when you have flamethrowers and fucking the best, I know landmines is a little old school, but you just something to take a foot off or something,
I thought about maybe just like trebuchets. When they come over, you just put them in, launch them back over. I don't know. 1,000 people just crossed over into El Paso.
Yes.
2 nights ago, all at one time, and they now have 5,000 people in custody just in El Paso, Texas, right now.
Yeah, we showed that today. It looked like the opening of the Boston Marathon. Fucking believable.
I don't think they come from the places that are good runners, though, so it's not going to matter.
No, I don't see any Nigerians who win it every year. By the way, which is the
it's weird. The wall thing has always been dumb to me because
what's your
I've
take
seen
on
it. I've seen the built up parts of it. And I've also seen where somebody dug a 1.5 foot deep ditch on one side and they use a pneumatic jack to lift it up and just walk right under it. So if you don't have somebody standing there with a gun, ultimately people are going to get across the border. Think about Spain, Morocco. That's probably the best example. So Spain their southern border is militarized because there's so much drug and sex trafficking that comes from Africa through Morocco.
Right.
That's where all the drugs get into Europe is through Morocco. And they still get in, even with a militarized border. So, what do you think? An unmanned wall is going to somehow stop something? This is not smart.
That's when I get cynical and go, oh, this is a big play. This is all for show. Right. I really do. I mean, if you're serious about being a sovereign nation, like you said, you pick off one kid climbing over the fence, and they're all going to turn. I play along, but then that's why I don't get on Fox that much. I can't say shit like this. But yeah, it's embarrassing to me, and now fucking Biden flying these people. I mean, giving them buses. They're in commercial airplanes, That was the thing. What's your take on him taking air marshals off a plane to send him to the border? I mean, isn't that like sending baseball players to the combine in the NFL? What the fuck? What's the?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
It's a little bizarre. The president has great latitude in the executive branch and how he can distribute resources and manpower and stuff like that. So technically, it's legal to do it. But I can tell you that from inside of the department, there's guys are getting ready to go on strike if this continues. That's what I've heard, both from Border Patrol because they hate Mayorkas at DHS, and from people in the Treasury Department who do air marshal stuff and DOJ who do air marshal stuff. I mean, they're just really pissed off because they ultimately, I mean, look, they're getting a paycheck, they're going to get their pension. But when somebody asks you what your job is and you say, I do this, and you're like, oh, well, you guys are fucked up. Right. That's not a great feeling, right?
Right. People say it to me all the time. See my paycheck when I leave the funny bone. What the fuck?
But that's not the worst thing that's going on our airplanes. You should look into a company called MVM Inc. Do you remember that plane that was landing? Those planes that were landing in the middle of the night with illegal immigrants on them?
Yes.
It's a company called MVM Inc.
Excuse me 1 second, Dan. My producer, Dallas, you said you worked for him,
Yeah,
Dallas?
so MVM had a contract in Northern Iraq whenever I did my 10 years Army. I worked for MVM for a little bit until I switched hats to SOC.
Yeah, so you worked for SOC, so I worked for SNGI for a while, the domestic version of SOC back in the day.
Translator?
At any rate, MVM, this is kind of how it goes. People come across the border. We know they're coming across the border. They go to HHS to get tested for COVID sometimes. I don't think they're doing that anymore. No. But then they go to the Office of Resettlement, ORR, and if it's an unaccompanied minor, all the females go to San Diego for some reason, and MVM takes them out there. And then they disappear into the system. We have no idea where these little girls are. And then the boys get distributed to sometimes 14 to 15 different kids who are not related, go to the same address. It's fucked. And it's happening. Like it's basically state-sponsored sex trafficking, so far as I can tell.
The fuck? As far as the little girls, hold 1 second. Okay. As far as the little girls, I would check Biden's garage, depending on what shampoo they are. Use. That's insane. I didn't hear that. And Dallas, you aided and abetted this type of shit?
Nope. I was doing shit
there's
in
another
Northern
company
Iraq.
here in Texas called Southwest Key Programs. New York Times actually wrote an article on them in 2019. They do the same thing. So it started out as kind of a halfway house for underage illegal immigrants who are in the process of getting deported or whatever. And it's basically a giant fucking scam, right? So they're stealing money hand over fist. The people that are on the board. So it's a 501c3. If you work for a 501c3, there's a cap on how much you can get for a salary, right? So the way they get around this is the board will loan out money from federal grants from the 501c3 to their private companies. Their private companies will then buy properties around Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and they rent the properties back at 3 to 10 times more than what they paid for them to the 501c3. This is the New York Times did this story in 2019. You can look it up. Southwest Key Programs. It's still going on today. Nobody's done a goddamn thing about it.
I'm not even.
And even despite the fact that one of their counselors in Phoenix in the Arizona office with HIV raped 5 little boys, they're still operating with impunity.
It's funny. I didn't hear that coming out on MSNBC when that happened.
Well, you didn't hear it on Fox either.
No, that's true. I was going to have that story. That's fucking insane, man. That's it's a filthy world. It makes you wonder where we're headed. How about give me your take? Not that I don't know where you're going to go with this, but fucking Admiral Levine. What a piece of ass!
That's a dude. That's my take. Although we're 50% done with that shit now because Sam Brinton has apparently been on a fucking shopping spree at every airport across the country.
Yes.
So that weirdo's gone. It's only a matter of time. All these people are mentally ill, so it's only a matter of time before Levine is gone too.
He looked like Matt Damon going through chemo. What a fucking...
He looked like a little bit like Matt Damon in Euro Trip when he was singing.
Look like Matt Damon in an evening gown. How do you fucking hire a... I mean, and you said mental illness. That's no exaggeration. Look, not MIT. The guy went to MIT, so he's one of those borderline genius fucking nuts. mentally ill, right? You can't be a dope to get in there unless he probably blew the dean or whatever. How about, what else do I want to ask you about? I was looking at some of your stuff. I remember seeing you on Tucker. You talked about, was his name Stuart Scheller?
Scheller,
Scheller,
the Marine Corps colonel.
Yeah, that wanted some accountability after that Kabul disaster, and they threw him in the fucking hoosegow for a week. That's when I was like, what in Christ is going on, man?
Sure,
You had a lot to say about that, right?
That's what I expect out of leadership. I expect General Milley to do something like that, right? So you remember when Trump was talking about using troops to quell some of the riots that were happening in the States.
Yes.
Mad Dog Mattis, the quote unquote warrior monk, who's a total cunt, by the way, was like, he resigned in protest.
Yes.
And you know what? I respect that about him. He disagreed with what was happening and he resigned in protest. You should do that. Right. If you disagree morally with what's going on. Milley doesn't have the same temerity. He's a coward, in my opinion. Yeah,
well, I mean, when you're upset about white rage, if I'm in the military and I'm
take up a lot of time, doesn't it?
If I'm in the military and I'm on the higher up, I want nothing but white guys in fucking raged under me.
At least rage, if it's not white, right? Some kind of rage. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Exactly.
But, Mattis, by the way, he's on the board of a company with 5 other former secretaries of defense that oversee government military industrial complex deals with foreign countries, including Saudi Arabia. You know, the people that did 9/11, those guys.
Yeah.
So he's an American fucking hero, right?
Unfucking real. As far as we're talking to Dan Hollaway from Drinking Brothers podcast and also a contributor on Fox News sometimes. As far as, let's get to China and I mean, aren't they the biggest threat? We're talking about Russia and Ukraine, but China getting together with fucking Russia and Iran. I mean, China, I feel like, I'm so cynical. I feel like the die has been cast and everybody's sort of like this new world, this reset, you want to call it. China's going to be the big dog. I don't see any evidence against that right now, especially from my own fucking president.
Yeah, I mean,
he's compromised. Isn't he compromised, Dan?
I don't think China's going to be able to keep its own country in line, to be honest.
That's a lot of people that get mad. You're right.
Yeah, people are starting to get pissed off over there about all the stuff that's going on, and we're seeing it. I mean, Xi Jinping just said this week that they're going to relax some of the COVID zero policies and stuff. You don't typically see capitulation from a guy like that.
No.
That's a bad sign for him, right?
Yes.
And it's a bad sign for the Iranians that they had to come out and say that they were going to tap down or they're going to calm down a little bit on executing these protesters and shit. But we're going to, the biggest threat to America is lazy fuckface Americans.
That's right.
You know what I mean, people that take all this shit for granted. They think because they're standing on something that it's always been there and always will be, but that's not how shit works.
Does not at all. It works just the opposite. And I always say that on this show too. I go, I'm like, I've never been happy to be 60. I'm so depressed about the world. And that's a sad statement. I don't want to get fucking old. But I'm like, the revolution's going to kick off. I'm going to be laying on the couch like the fucking asshole that I am. But Dan, how old are you, Dan?
I'm 41.
41. How old are you, Dallas? 42?
42.
Jesus Christ. You guys are going to have to save us. I get all bad shoulders, backs fucking kill me. But,
well, people talk about how this is all part of the natural cycle of civilization, right? Where times get tough, people get tough, times get easy, and then people get weak.
Yep.
And, maybe that is part of it. Maybe that's the natural cycle, but maybe it's also part of the natural cycle that a bunch of fucking megalomaniac vultures sent a bunch of us, a couple 100,000 of us, to war for 20 years to teach us how to fuck shit up. And now we're ready for them. You know what I mean?
Yes, there could be an awakening that they're not taking into account, hopefully. Guys like you, absolutely. I always say to Dallas, when we read these horrific headlines, I go, you almost fucking lost your life because of these jerk-offs. But somebody has to stand up and do it. But you're right, man. People assume, this is never going to be a rev. I can't believe how close we are. I never thought I'm 61 in a month. I never thought I'd be alive to see maybe the next thing kick off. Who said, may you live in interesting times? It wasn't exactly a compliment who said it. But,
Well, I mean, one of the revolutions is kind of happening right now with Twitter, right? This
yes, that's the other thing.
Just pulling back the veil
Right.
on Oz a little bit
Right.
and seeing what's been going on behind the scenes is really interesting because Twitter has maybe 1/5 of the audience of Facebook and Instagram,
Right.
and they have maybe 1/15 of the audience of Google, right? So you can imagine what those other two organizations are doing is probably far worse than what's happening at Twitter and at a much greater rate. But and not that I trust Elon Musk. This guy's putting chips in monkeys' heads and fucking doing deals with China and shit. I
Yeah,
don't trust that
yeah,
guy. But it is
yeah.
really interesting what's happening, right?
yes, I guess you can be be putting chips in monkeys' heads and still believe in free speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point. Hey, Dan, I want to thank you very much, man.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you on the internet and on Tucker, and it was a really pleasure to talk to you. And thank you for your service, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you. A big fan.
Appreciate it. We'll do it again sometime, hopefully.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Dan. That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I want to thank our guest, the great Dan Hollaway, for joining us today. You guys think it, I'll say it. You're very welcome. See you back here tomorrow. Take care.
Hi, good night, everybody.